So let's talk about temperatures. So early on, when we're talking about temperatures, we were basically talking about sort of a war with heat in the early stages, overheating and propagation, a common challenge, overheating around the pinch and all that. Now we're going to start talking about, we are still in some markets, a little bit of a battle with heat, and that will continue in some places in the Southwest, Southeast for another month or so. But in other people, now it's more about making sure that you're maintaining your temperatures. And yes, cool nights are nice, but there are limits in a poinsettia. And we'll talk a lot about cold finish here in a little bit, and we'll kind of get into the rules of engagement and some of the challenges associated with it. But one of the key things you got to keep in mind is ADT, average daily temperature. That's how a lot of ways the poinsettia's growth rate will be governed by this average daily temperature. Now, extreme heat during the middle of the day will slow down and stall and stress a poinsettia, as well very much cold at night. So you would say the AGT is critical, but extremes above the AGT in the heat of the day, and then a night that gets too cold, they will have a negative effect relative to the average temperature. But what does a poinsettia really want? I mean, I think a poinsettia is about as happy as it can be in the mid 70s. You get a rapid growth rate. You can get up into the 80s and probably get more growth out of it, but I would argue that growth, the tone of that growth isn't ideal. So you're at 85, you're beginning to fight the growth a little bit. But when it comes to building a bract, is where we're coming here later to the end, temperature is critical for bract development. And there's some critical touches here, and this is one of those, it happens every year again, and that is night temperatures getting too hot. If you are in the deep south, be cognizant of that there are genetics that will perform with the night temperatures and initiate flower with night temperatures warm, but there are limited genetics. Other varieties, when the nights get above 75 or 78 degrees, especially for several nights in a row, which is a very common event in places like East Texas, the Gulf Coast, etc., that will begin to delay the flowering. And so there is it's called heat delay response to poinsettia. So you need to be aware of that and know that your night temperature is important. So the idea, well, I need to keep my heat up by day because I'm worried about the nights are starting to cool off a little bit. That's great. But also, if your nights are retaining heat, make sure that you don't go into a save my vents mode. I'm going to carry heat through the night mode when you're warm at night, because you need to get that early evening ventilation to get that temperature of the greenhouse down. Because even though it might be 77 outside, you might retain 80, 81 in the greenhouse just from latent heat into the evening. So really important to avoid that hot night during this initiation phase. The rules of engagement for this temperature pretty much apply to the same things that we talk about with the light, from really beginning of September through the middle of October. It can still influence. The later you go, the safer you are. But of course, Mother Nature cooperates and you're not fighting the heat. So it's really important. Maximum bract development is in the mid 70s. An ideal for bract development would be like a 75 ADT for bract development. Overall growth, for maximizing quality of growth, an ADT 68 to 73, that's relatively low. That means you can apply night temperatures down in the low mid 60s. So we'll get more into that here in a minute. So temperature is it's a very key part. Light, quality, and temperature are probably one of the two key factors that affect bract development. That's why you find that there's some varieties that are really better suited for different regions, and varieties that are really work good in the north, where the day length gets very, very short, and our light levels, our ADT, or our moles, light moles, drop dramatically. Varieties that are selected in those environments tend to work better in those environments. So here you can see is an example of a variety, and this is 3 different temperature regimes that we run through to test cold sensitivities in a variety. these are basically, this is a night temperature run from October to finish. And so you can see 55-degree nights is too cold, and you start to tie up nutrients and the bracts don't develop it. Even at this particular variety, at 60-degree nights, you're seeing some sensitivity, but at 66-degree nights, you get a decent bract size. So what it really boils down to is you need to qualify your genetics on their night temperature sensitivity, or their temperature sensitivity to bract development. So when you start talking about a cold finish strategy or cool night finish strategy, you really have to be cognizant of how your varieties work in this situation. Most catalogs out today will qualify and notate the varieties that are effective in this cool growing regime.